Canada ever become the 51st state? Have you ever wondered if Canada could ever become the 51st state? While this might sound like something out of a political thriller, it's an idea that has been discussed, debated, and sometimes even joked about. But could it really happen? Let's break it down and see what factors make this such an intriguing, yet unlikely possibility. Since the War of 1812, when both nations were at odds, the U.S. and Canada have had a mostly peaceful relationship. During the 19th century, there were times when the idea of closer ties or even full union between the U.S. and Canada was floated. The 1840s saw several discussions about what Canada's future would look like, and some even suggested that Canada might eventually join the U.S. But in 1867, Canada chose independence and formed its own nation with the Canadian Confederation. Even though Canada chose a different path from the U.S., the two countries remained close neighbors, sharing the longest border in the world and fostering significant trade and diplomatic relations. Fast forward to today, and Canada and the United States have a deeply intertwined relationship, especially when it comes to the economy. The USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, previously known as NAFTA, has made trade between the two nations essential. Canada exports a significant amount of natural resources, manufactured goods, and agricultural products to the U.S., while the U.S. provides Canada with access to one of the world's largest markets. Beyond trade, there's a political connection that can't be ignored. Canada and the U.S. often collaborate on defense, border security, and international diplomacy. The Canada-U.S. partnership is one of the most stable in the world. Yet it's important to note that Canada remains independent in its foreign policy, especially when it comes to military interventions or conflicts, as Canada tends to adopt a more neutral stance. Some might say that Canada could benefit from becoming a state. The economic benefits could be huge, with access to even more resources and investment from the U.S. government. As a state, Canada could potentially have a stronger voice in international politics and trade negotiations, something that might appeal to those looking for more influence on the global stage. There's also the possibility of improved healthcare for Canadians. The U.S. government spends massive amounts on healthcare and social services, and some might argue that if Canada were to join the U.S., it could benefit from a larger healthcare system. However, there are strong arguments against Canada becoming a U.S. state. The most obvious is the loss of sovereignty. Canada has always valued its independence, from its political system to its unique cultural identity. Canadians take pride in their healthcare system, their neutrality in global conflicts, and their distinct identity as a nation. The idea of being governed by Washington, D.C. instead of Ottawa could be a tough pill to swallow for most Canadians. There's also the fear that the U.S. political system could overshadow Canadian values and laws, as many Canadians are more liberal on issues like gun control, climate change, and healthcare. Another concern is the military involvement. Canada is known for its peacekeeping efforts, and joining the U.S. could mean being involved in more conflicts that don't align with Canadian values of neutrality. While the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state might seem outlandish, it still pops up from time to time in political conversations and social media posts. In recent years, some Canadians have expressed frustration with their own political systems and looked southward for potential solutions. There are always occasional jokes or memes about Canada joining the U.S., especially when there's political turmoil or dissatisfaction in the air. Some even argue that Canada's economy could benefit more from being part of the U.S. But these discussions, while sometimes lighthearted, rarely evolve into serious conversations. Still, the fact that this idea continues to circulate shows the curious fascination with the possibility, even though the reality remains distant. So, what would it actually take for Canada to become a state? The process would require massive legal and constitutional changes. First, Canada would have to hold a referendum where Canadians would vote on whether to give up their sovereignty and join the U.S. Then, both the Canadian Parliament and the U.S. Congress would need to approve the decision. After that, constitutional amendments would be required on both sides. This process would be long, complex, and unlikely to gain enough support in Canada, where national pride and independence are deeply embedded in the culture. Canadians are generally proud of their country, and the idea of losing their identity to become part of the U.S. doesn't appeal to the majority of the population. So, could Canada ever become the 51st state? Technically, it's possible, but highly unlikely. The legal barriers, combined with public opinion, make this an improbable scenario. Canadians enjoy their sovereignty, their healthcare, their peacekeeping role, and their unique cultural identity. But what do you think? Do you believe Canada could ever join the US, or is this just a fun thought experiment? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into politics and world affairs. Key vocabulary. 1. Sovereignty, the authority of a state to govern itself or control its own affairs. 2. USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, a trade agreement between the US, Canada, and Mexico that replaced NAFTA. 3. Confederation, the act of forming a union of different territories or states, in this case, Canada's creation as an independent nation in 1867. 4. Neutrality, the policy of not taking sides in conflicts or wars, which Canada has historically maintained in many global issues. 5. Referendum, a direct vote by the people on a specific political or constitutional issue. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Certainly.